Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive on, well, I guess you could say the heart of Skyrim, the Nords.
A people of legend and mead and, well, you know the stereotypes.
Right, like they just popped out of the snow with a tankard in one hand and a battle axe in the other. But you're here, which tells me you're ready to, well, dig a little deeper. To find out how a group of, let's be honest, immigrants from a frozen wasteland became the builders of empires. And luckily, so are we. We've got our hands on some pretty amazing stuff. Ancient
Yeah.
texts, stories passed down through their bardic traditions, even some, well, surprisingly insightful scholarly articles.
And trust me, their history, it's more than just battles,
Yeah.
though there were a lot of battles.
Okay, so maybe not more than battles, but what's fascinating is how those struggles shaped everything from their beliefs to, I don't know, their sense of humor.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
But to really get it, we got to go back to the beginning. And I'm not talking about Skyrim. Before that even, they weren't the sturdy, frost-resistant warriors we know.
So where did it all begin?
Picture a frozen wasteland, harsher than even Skyrim, called Atmora. Now imagine a climate shift so bad it forces its people to seek new lands. Now these weren't the first humans to reach Tamriel, but the Nords. Theirs was a brutal welcome.
Do you think about how tough they had to be to not just survive that trip, but to actually make a life in a new land? Makes their whole, reverence for those who die in battle even more interesting, huh? Especially that whole idea of Sovgard, the Nord afterlife, a peaceful afterlife earned through the harshest lives.
Absolutely. And that tension between loving a good fight but then yearning for a peaceful end. It's something we're going to be looking at throughout this whole deep dive, really. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, got to talk about the defining moment, the Night of Tears.
Now, this is where it gets good, right? Isgrimor, the 500 companions. Betrayal, revenge, it's all there. But for those who need a little refresher course on their ancient Nordic sagas, walk us through it.
Of course. So Ysgramor, this central figure in their whole legend, led an early wave of settlers to, you guessed it, Skyrim. They established this place, Sarthal, and then tragedy. The Snow Elves, threatened by these newcomers, they attacked. The massacre, it was almost total. Ysgramor, though, he and a few others, including his sons, they escape, flee back to Atmora.
Talk about solidifying your image as survivors, not just reaching a new land, but coming back from that.
Exactly. But it doesn't end there. Fueled by, well, everything. Grief, vengeance, Ysgramor, he vows to return. Gathers the 500 companions' fiercest warriors Atmora could offer. They set sail back to Skyrim, ready to put it lightly, reclaim what they lost.
Yeah, okay, so we've got a harsh environment, a near-extinction event, and then this band of, let's be honest, hardened warriors seeking revenge. No wonder their culture values strength, resilience. But how did all of that shape how they, I don't know, govern themselves? They come back this unified force, or was it more complicated than that?
That is where the moot comes into play. See, the Nords, they've always had this independent streak, this belief in the power of individual voices, not kings, not inherited power, but leaders chosen by the people, for the people.
Hold on, so even after this huge unifying experience of the Night of Tears, coming back to Skyrim, they didn't just rally behind one king, they went with a more, I guess you could say, democratic approach. That's not what I expected. But how did that work? Having everyone's voice heard, did it lead to strong leadership or did it clash?
That's the question, isn't it? The moot, it was the Nord spirit, independence and all that, but it also, well, it had its downsides. Imagine a gathering of the fiercest jarls, each one used to leading their own holds, each one with their own ambitions, their own ideas about, well, how things should be run.
Sounds like it could get lively, to say the least.
Yeah.
But before we dive into those power struggles, we got to talk about those victories against the Snow Elves. Those weren't just battles, they were legendary, right? Shaped the very soul of Skyrim, you could say.
I'd say so. It wasn't just about land, it was symbolic. It was about reclaiming their place in Skyrim, proving themselves against, well, a powerful ancient enemy. Those victories, those were the foundation of the Nords as the dominant force in Skyrim. And that echoes through generations, my friend.
Makes you wonder how much of who they are now, that love for a good fight, even that reverence for those who die in battle, how much of it comes from those early victories?
A question worth pondering.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember their story. It's always
Yeah.
evolving. They reveled in those victories, for sure, celebrated their heroes. But their ambition, it didn't end with the Snow Elves. They'd had power and, well, they craved more.
Okay, now this is where I think things get really good. We're talking about the rise of the First Nord Empire, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sensing it wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
Yeah, smooth sailing might be pushing it. You see, that same moot system, the
Yeah.
one that gave them a voice, it also made it, well, tough to stay unified. Imagine a room full of battle-hardened jarls, each one used to leading their own holds. And you're trying to get them to agree on something as complicated as building an empire.
Like herding skeevers, am I right? But someone managed to wrangle them, at least for a little while.
Right, you are. King Vrage the Gifted, first to unite the holds of Skyrim under one banner. He understood the Nords, you see, knew their strength came from that individual drive, and he harnessed it.
So less about squashing those individual ambitions, more about unifying them. That's fascinating. What brings down an empire like that? Internal struggles, outside pressure.
It's the classic case of, well, internal struggles weakening the foundation. King Borgus, Vrage's successor, he meets an untimely end during a wild hunt.
Intense way to go, but remind me, what's a wild hunt? For those of us who haven't quite brushed up on our mythical Nord hunts recently.
All right, so it's this,
Yeah.
well, it's almost mythical. This group of spectral hunters, they're said to ride across the sky and, well, getting caught in their path. Not good
Yeah.
for anyone.
Right, okay, yeah. That's coming back. Bad way for a king to go out, for sure. But how does that, even as dramatic as it is, how does it bring down an entire empire?
Remember that independence streak we talked about? No clear heir, the moot. It dissolved into chaos, every jarl thinking they were the rightful successor, arguments escalating, and, well, eventually it all boiled over. And the empire, weakened by infighting, it couldn't handle the pressure, fractured, leaving Skyrim vulnerable once again.
It's a thought, isn't it? Even the strongest can be undone from within. Makes you think about how delicate that balance of power is, even in a society that outwardly is all about strength, Conquest. But I'm guessing this wasn't the end for the Nords.
Oh, far from it. This is where we get to perhaps one of the most impactful moments, not just in Nord history, but in the history of Tamriel. We're talking about Tiber Septim.
Here we go. The Dragonborn. The one who forged the Third Empire. Something tells me the Nords weren't exactly thrilled to have another empire knocking at their door.
You've been doing your reading. They resisted. Oh, yeah. They even allied with the Bretons for a while there to challenge his growing power. But Tiber Septim, he had a few tricks up his sleeve. And not just, political maneuvering. I'm talking about a certain powerful ancient magic.
Gotta be the Thu'um. Things go from epic to legendary here, don't they? But that vocal magic, that force of nature that some Nords can wield, it's more than just a cool power, isn't it? It's like woven into their culture, their whole belief system.
Absolutely. To understand the Thu'um, you got to understand the Nords' connection to their land, to their very essence. It's about harnessing the raw power of the voice, the wind, the very breath of the world, really, to create powerful effects.
So it's like their voices become like channels for the raw energy of Skyrim itself. No wonder it's so revered. But I imagine some folks listening might be new to this. What is the Thu'um, really? It's more than just shouting really loud, right?
It's not karaoke night, no. It takes years, dedication, discipline, and a deep, well, spiritual connection to what they call the voice. They say that Kine, the Nord goddess of the storm, she grants this gift to those she deems worthy, those who embody the true spirit of the Nords.
So it's a spiritual gift, connection to the divine, but also, a very real and very powerful force in the world. Can definitely see how Tiber Septim wielding that would make an impact.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine this. The Battle of Sancretor. Tiber Septim facing a combined Nord and Breton army. And he unleashes the Thu'um in all its fury.
Okay, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. But even though they resisted at first, eventually the Nords become part of the Third Empire. What could make them change allegiances so drastically?
It was a few things, really. I mean, you see the Thu'um in action, that'll change your mind pretty quickly. But Tiber Septim, he was smart. He recognized their, well, inherent strength. And he gave them something they'd wanted since, well, the First Empire. A chance to prove themselves, to be part of something bigger.
So it wasn't just about brute force. It was about, purpose, glory. It's always more complicated than it seems, isn't it? Even with the Nords. So how did that go? Integrating into the empire? Smooth transition, or were there complications?
It wouldn't be a true Nord story without a little rebellion, would it?
Yeah.
Some embraced it, joined the legions, others not so much. Uprisings, challenges. And then you've got figures like the Wolf Queen Patema who kept things, well, interesting. to say the least.
Of course, there's a wolf queen. It seems like that independent spirit, it never really went away. But we've talked a lot about, well, warriors and empires and battles. I'm curious, what about everyday life? What are their homes like? What else do they value? Besides, a good brawl. Yeah, it's easy to focus on the big stuff, battles, empires, all that. But what's it like to actually live as a Nord? What do they care about beyond a good fight?
Well, to understand that, you got to understand their connection to the land. Skyrim is harsh, right? Unforgiving. It demands a certain, well, resilience, resourcefulness.
Makes sense. You
Yeah.
can't exactly just waltz into a place like that and expect to thrive.
Exactly. And you see it in, well, everything. Their craftsmanship, for example. Take their blacksmithing. It's not just about making weapons armor. It's an art, a way of shaping the very essence of Skyrim into something, well, something both useful and beautiful.
It's like their whole world, their environment, their history, it's all right there, hammered into those blades, those shields.
And speaking of shaping things, we can't forget about storytelling. Bards, skalds, they're more than just, entertainers. They're the keepers of history, the ones who keep those stories alive.
Imagine it.
Right.
Listener, you're huddled in a longhouse, blizzard raging outside. Right. Fire's crackling, mead is flowing, and some seasoned old bard is spinning tales of heroes and monsters and ancient battles. It's more than just a good time. It's how they understand the world, how they remember.
Exactly. And for all that talk about epic tales, battles, there's this warmth to it all,
Yeah.
this gruff kind of affection in their culture.
Like those insults that are actually compliments. Or how the answer to everything seems to be more mead.
Exactly. Or those superstitions they have.
Yeah.
Creatures like, I don't know, the Falmer or the Draugr adds a layer of dark humor, I guess, a way of dealing with the dangers lurking out there.
It's like those stories, those superstitions are a way of acknowledging like the power of the unknown.
Right.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right? There's the Skal, those Nords who, well, they chose a different path.
Ah, yes, the Scowl over on Solstheim, they're fascinating. A real counterpoint to their, well, mainland cousins, you could say.
Yeah.
Much more spiritual, deeply connected to the land, to the Allmaker.
It's like they looked at Skyrim, that harshness, and instead of a challenge, saw something to, well, live in harmony with. Instead of the roar of the Thu'um, it's the quiet wisdom of, I don't know, the wind through the trees.
Beautifully put. And it speaks to the diversity within, well, Nord culture itself. They might share those common threads, history, tradition, but within that, there's so much variation.
Right.
It's what makes them so interesting.
So we've gone from this frozen wasteland, Atmora, to the heart of Skyrim, right? Explored their history, their beliefs, those traditions, everything. But why? Why should you, listening, care about the Nords?
Because they remind us that even cultures that seem simple, they're never that simple. The Nords, with their love of a good fight, but also that reverence for a peaceful afterlife, that fierce independence, but also those deep traditions. Well, it's the contradictions that make us human, right?
They remind us that strength and vulnerability aren't opposites. That history, it's more than dates and battles, it's about people. It makes you wonder, what will their future hold? Will they hold on to the old ways? Or forge a new path, one that honors the past but also faces, well, whatever's coming next? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.